We are at a critical moment. It's 2026, and autonomous AI is pretty much everywhere. But now, for the very first time, it's about to run headfirst into a major rulebook. We're smack in the middle of a new kind of arms race, and it's not just about attackers and defenders anymore. Now, it's innovation versus regulation.
Okay, let's just start with the threat that feels like it was ripped straight out of a movie script, but it is very, very real. Palo Alto Networks is telling us that we basically can't trust our own eyes or ears anymore. Think about it. One perfectly faked command from a CEO doppelganger is all it would take to kick off a massive automated disaster. That's the world we're living in now.
And just to give you a sense of the scale we're talking about, look at this number. For every single human worker inside a company, there are now, on average, 82 autonomous AI agents. No, that is not a typo. 82 to 1. This isn't just about a few clever bots anymore. This is a complete transformation of our digital workforce and, you guessed it, a gigantic expansion of the potential attack surface.
So how in the world do we get our heads around this? Well, here's the plan. First, we're going to break down the brand new threat landscape these agents have created. Then, we'll look at Europe's massive new rulebook that's trying to tame this Wild West. We'll dive into the core idea of labeling every single AI action, see how the big tech giants are scrambling to react, and then, at the end, we'll ask the big question. Is this an arms race that can ever really be won?
All right, let's dive into the dangers first. Because the sheer speed and cleverness of these new AI-driven attacks have created a whole new class of threats. Stuff we couldn't have even imagined just a couple of years back.
The first threat completely changes the game on insider risk. We give these AI agents all this privileged access to our most secret systems, all in the name of productivity. But what happens when an attacker gets control of that agent? Well, it becomes the perfect spy, the autonomous insider. It's tireless, it's perfectly positioned, and it's working at machine speed from inside your defenses.
Next up is something way more subtle, but honestly, it's just as devastating. Data poisoning. So instead of attacking the AI model after it's built, attackers go after the source. They corrupt the training data itself. And what you end up with are these untrustworthy models with hidden backdoors baked right in. It's causing what experts are calling a crisis of data trust. Because if you can't trust the data the AI learned from, how can you trust anything it does?
And all of this leads right to the boardroom. For years, AI was seen as an IT problem. Well, not anymore. As the first major lawsuits start to hit in 2026, we're entering a new era of legal accountability, the new gavel, if you will. This means executives can now be held personally liable for what their rogue AIs do. Suddenly, AI risk isn't a tech issue. It's a massive board-level liability.
So the threats are pretty clear, right? But what exactly are these AI agents causing all this chaos? Well, they're the ultimate force multiplier. They can supercharge a business's productivity, for sure, but they can do the exact same thing for people with bad intentions.
So here's the most important thing to get. An autonomous AI agent is not just a chatbot. It's an AI that acts. It can buy something, post on social media, pull sensitive data, all without a human having to approve every single little step. That autonomy is what makes it so powerful, and of course, so dangerous.
Okay, so faced with this absolute explosion of autonomous agents, regulators are finally stepping in, and Europe has fired the first major shot with its AI Act. This thing is a huge, comprehensive attempt to finally bring some law and order to the Wild West of unregulated AI.
And the changes, well, it's stark. We're moving away from a world of these mysterious black box models where there was zero accountability. And we're moving into a new framework that demands human oversight, really strict rules for data, and crucially, the ability to trace every action an AI takes. It's a complete rewiring of how AI gets built and used.
Now, at the very heart of this new rulebook is a simple but totally revolutionary idea: transparency through labeling. The thinking is, if an AI is doing something out in the world, we should know it's an AI. Sounds easy, but how do you actually pull that off?
This is the million-dollar question the EU AI Act is trying to answer. When an AI agent likes a post or shares some political article or even just browses a website, its activity looks exactly like a person's. And without some kind of label, we can't tell the difference. We start mistaking synthetic, manufactured opinions for real human consensus, and that can distort everything from the stock market to election results. So how are they proposing to solve this? It's actually pretty interesting. As this flowchart from GovEye shows, the idea is that when an AI system does something, like a web request or moving a mouse, that action gets tagged with digital metadata.
It's basically a little digital label that says, hey, just so you know, an AI did this.
So how does this actually work in the real world? Okay, it's basically a four-step process that uses digital signatures, kind of like what secures a lot of the internet already. First, the company that made the AI attaches that metadata label to an action, let's say an online payment. Second, they sign it with their secret private key. Third, the platform on the other end, like your bank, uses the company's public key to check that signature. And that final step confirms two really important things: authenticity, so you know who sent it, and integrity, meaning you know it hasn't been faked or changed along the way.
Of course, having a rulebook is one thing. Getting the biggest tech companies in the world to actually follow it, that's a whole other ballgame. And the AI Act has created this huge split in Silicon Valley, forcing every major player to pick a side.
And you can really see the divide in how they're all responding. You've got Microsoft, which is going all in on compliance by design, trying to position itself as the safest, most responsible choice. Google is playing the cooperation card. OpenAI is getting ahead of the curve, aligning its safety work with the EU rules. And then you've got Meta, which is taking a much more confrontational approach and is now staring down a formal investigation.
So you might be wondering, why does a regulation in Europe matter so much to a company in California? Well, it's this phenomenon called the Brussels effect. For a global company, it's just way easier and cheaper to build one single product that meets the toughest standard out there, which in this case is the EU's, and then just sell that same compliant product everywhere else. So, without even trying, Europe's rules are becoming the world's rules by default.
And that brings us to our final section, because this AI Act, it's not the end of the story, not by a long shot. It's really just the start of a brand new phase in this never-ending arms race between the people building AI threats and the people trying to build the defenses.
So, this is the new state of play. The reality is, it's a constant battle. The new referee in that battle is regulation, setting the rules of engagement. And for the AI developers, the strategy is totally changed. It's no longer just about who has the most power or speed. The new winning metric is safety by design.
But, and this is a big but, the system is not foolproof. As GovEye points out, these fancy digital labels are only useful if people and platforms actually pay attention to them. If the labels just get ignored, or if pretty soon everything online is AI generated anyway, then the whole effort for transparency could completely fall apart. It's a really critical weakness.
Which leaves us with one last nagging question. We have our first big rulebook. The defenders have a bunch of new tools. But the attackers are innovating every bit as fast. In this endless arms race between autonomous AI and human regulation, who's really going to end up with the upper hand?